mathematicians, today we are going to talk about distance and midpoints. First thing is, I want us to think of a number line. And I want us to think of the numbers -6 and 1 and everything in between. So if we think of the numbers -6 and 1, how far apart are they? Well, I can count from one into the other. So on a number line, it's nice and easy just to count spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They are 7 spaces away. Another way you can find it instead of counting is subtract them. -6 minus 1. Change the sign, change the neighbor, -7. Now, we cannot have -7 spaces, cannot have a negative distance, so that would become 7. Okay. So you can either count them on a number line or subtract the two pieces and make your answer positive. If I am given 2 points, though, I can't just count spaces. So to find the distance between 2 points, we need to use the distance formula. And the distance formula is subtract the x's, square it, plus subtract the y's, square that, take the square root of the whole thing. Subtract the x's squared, plus subtract the y's, square it, take the square root of the whole thing. Now it's really important, whichever x comes first, its matching y must come first. It doesn't matter which one comes first, except the y has to match. So this is really important. You're going to need to know this distance formula and how to use it. So if I think of the numbers, don't need a distance formula here because it's not coordinate points. I can either use a number line and count, or I can just subtract them and make my answer positive. So -3 minus 7 is -10. So how many spaces apart are they? 10 spaces apart. 3 to the left, 7 to the right, make 10 all together. And again, if you'd like to draw a number line, that would be perfectly fine to count how many spaces there are. What about 4 and 8? How will I do this one? 4 minus 8, or 8 minus 4, is -4. So how many spaces? 4 spaces in between. Try this next one. How many spaces in between -5 and 0? Let's see how you did. You probably can think of a number line in your head. From -5 to 0, how many spaces is that? 5 spaces in between. So the more you get used to these, you probably can start seeing the number line in your head and figure it out on your own. Try how far -9 and -3 are. What did you do first? -9 minus -3 is -6, or how many spaces? 6 spaces apart. Again, you could have thought 9 to the left, 3 to the left, 6 in between if you are starting to be able to see your number line. Why can we not just subtract these? They're coordinate points, so I have to use this distance formula. First thing I need to decide is which point wants to come first. I'm going to go with this one as my first one. Meaning, when I subtract the x's, 5 must come first. When I subtract the y's, 1 must come first. And you're going to have to show your work for these. So, subtract the x's, 5 minus -3 square that, then what? Plus, subtract the y's, and this one must come first, minus -3. Make sure you have all those minuses in there. And then what? Square it. The last thing we must do, take the square root of that. Start inside our parentheses. Minus minus becomes plus plus. This is 8 squared, 64. What about a minus minus? Plus plus. Inside I have 4. 4 squared, 16. That's all under the square root. 64 plus 16 should get 80. And then you can use a calculator. And the square root of 80, 8.94. So these 2 points are 8.94 units from one another. Subtract the x's, square it, plus subtract the y's, square it, square root the whole thing. Try this next one on your own. Find the distance between 6, -1 and -2, 7. Let's see how you did. What's the first thing you did? Subtract your x's, and I'm going to have which one come first? 6. 6 minus -2, then what? Square it. Next, plus, then what? Subtract the y's. -1 must come first because 6 came first. So this was my first ordered pair. So -1 minus 7. And then what? Square it. Subtract the x's, square it, plus subtract the y's, square it, and square root the whole thing. A minus minus, plus plus. 6 plus 2, 8 squared, 64. Change the sign, change the neighbor. 1 negative and 7 negatives. 8 negatives. -8 times -8. Positive 64. Remember, that's a -8 times a -8. Don't forget our big square root. What did you get underneath the parenthesis, or underneath the square root sign? 128. Square root of 128 is 11.31. These 2 points are 11.31 units apart. Subtract your x's, square them, plus subtract your y's, square them, square root everything. The next thing we need to talk about is midpoint. Midpoint is the middle. It divides a segment into 2 congruent or equal measuring parts. Okay. To find the middle of 2 points, we need to add our x's, divide by 2, add our y's, divide by 2. So to find the middle, I don't have x, y, so I'm just going to do one of these. Add them, -20 plus 40, divide by 2. So add them, divide by 2. Add them, divide by 2. 20 over 2, 10. 10 is halfway in between -20 and 40 on a number line. Add them, divide by 2. We're going to do the same thing for coordinates, just going to do it twice. So I'm going to have both of these. I'm going to add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. Okay. That'll give us the point of our midpoint. So first thing, add the x's. 2 plus 4, and then what? Divide by 2. That's the x value. What do I do for the y value? Add the x's, add the y's, divide by 2. So here we will have 6 divided by 2, 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Halfway between these 2 points is 3, 3. If you were to connect those and find the exact middle, it would be 3, 3. Add the x's, divide by 2. Add the y's, divide by 2. So to find the middle, add them, divide by 2. So let's do the same thing for part B. What would you do first? Negative 3 plus 2, divide by 2. And next, 5 plus 6, divided by 2. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. You can just leave it as negative 1/2. 5 plus 6, 11. You can leave it as 11/2 or 5.5. So halfway in between these 2 points would be this coordinate here, negative 1/2 and 5, 5. Try this next one on your own. Let's see how you did. What did you do first to find the midpoint? Add the x values and divide by 2. What did you do next? Add the y values and divide by 2. So we should get negative 3/2 or negative 1.5. And what about here? 3 over 2 or positive 1.5. Halfway in between these 2 points would be the point negative 1.5, 1.5. Add them, divide by 2. Lastly, something that goes through a midpoint is called a bisector. A bisector cuts something in half. A bisector will cut something in half. Nice job today, mathematicians.